How might your life have been different if there was a religion for you? A religion that honored you as a woman, as made equal in the image of God. Welcome to Heretica, her ecofeminist theology podcast. My name is Elena and I am an ecofeminist theologian. Please subscribe at theologyofher.substack.com. Parthenogenesis and the liminal period in matriarchal cosmogony myths and pre-pubescent rites of initiation. In this chapter, I present Robert Graves' Pelasgian creation myth, a matriarchal cosmogony creation story which has at its center the virgin goddess generating the universe alone through her parthenogenetic authority. Here I explore the first part of the myth, which represents the first instance of liminality, before the actual creation of the formation of the animated world, at the time of the goddess's first bleed, seen in the next chapter. I do this to highlight the fact that prior to the formation of the universe, which requires the first blood of fertility, a moment of liminality is required to set things in motion. I then go on to present evidence of pre-Menarche rituals celebrated in ancient Greece, focusing on the rite of passage dedicated to Artemis of Beroon, where prepubescent girls played the she-bear to enter the liminal state required to be experienced prior to the onset of Menarche. This mirrors the above-mentioned threshold moment of the Pelasgian creation myth, which shows how in Greek thought people's lives were in accord with the forces that created life. By connecting and interpreting these two myths and archaeological findings, the importance of initiations that bring about liminality prior to Menarche can begin to be understood. So beginning with the liminality of pre-creation in cosmogony. The concept of prehistoric matriarchal religion was introduced in 1861 by Swiss jurist and anthropologist Johann Jacob Bachofen, who postulated that ancient societies were matriarchal. He referred to as mother right, goddess worshipping, and woman honoring. As such, the Pelasgian creation myth adopts this term and allows us to see the first instance of liminality within matriarchal cosmogony in order to know the liminal period pre-Menarche. Graves says, "In the beginning of Eurynome, the goddess of all things rose naked from chaos, but found nothing substantial for her feet to rest upon, and therefore divided the sea from the sky, dancing lonely upon its waves. She danced towards the south, and the wind, set in motion behind her, seemed something new and apart, with which to begin a work of creation." The origins of this archaic religious system makes no mention of gods nor priests, only a synthesis of sacred elements, the waters, the invisible wind, and a woman who begets the world, which essentially highlights a parthenogenetic religious basis. The origins of this archaic religious system makes no mention of gods nor priests, only a synthesis of sacred elements, the waters, the invisible wind, and a woman who begets the world, which essentially highlights a parthenogenetic religious basis. In this myth of Eurynome finds nothing material to rest her feet upon. So she materializes the ocean, which she is able to do so alone, by dividing the sky, the immaterial spirit force, and begins to dance alone on the waves, entering an altered state of consciousness, or the liminal space, where new ideas emerge out of spirit. The waves, a water element, right from the beginning of time, have been associated with the feminine essence and fertility powers of the goddess. The act of touching the water awakens in oneself the creative power of the wet goddess. Eventually, as she dances towards the south wind, the soul that has the power to set forth the visible landscape, the act of creation and manifestation begins. On a subtle level, what creates the relationship between the fluid element and the feminine is the nature of whatever is said to flow, movement, or rather the capacity to move, which transforms things. Consequently, it's understandable that the great goddess has always been related not only to water and its compounds, but to a multiplicity of elements and manifestations such as air, which breathes life into an empty space or a plant that, having emerged from a seed, ends up producing fruit. Gran posits that origin stories remember a time before anything was, consisting entirely of darkness and stillness, and all one undifferentiated element. This time was described as sleepy, dreamy, yawning, the Greek word for chaos. Chaos then separates into the forms we know as water, earth, light, sky, and so on, and thus consciousness evolved. Subsequently, this process needed forms to contain the emerging knowledge. Gran uses her metaforms as that container, and are closely related to menstruation and its rituals. Gran goes on to add how the process of learning requires separation, and that is why major creation stories describe a change of consciousness through separation. The God, or originating principle, is thus not heaven, earth, or light itself. The originating principle creates heaven, earth, light, and dark by separating them. Or as in some creation stories, the first beings emerge from darkness or the lower world. The act of separating is the act of creation, and also of consciousness, of understanding the imagery, of mental connection. Chaos is also the force which caused life to evolve itself out of dust, and is most concentratedly manifest in the human primordial life force, where it is the source of conscious creative power. This allowed for dualistic creation, and simultaneously the singularity of consciousness, so one can escape from duality and return to oneness of thought, both existent within chaos. In terms of self-realization, the gods came out of chaos, and from the gods came the essences of all things. Man contains the essence of all the gods. In turn, between chaos and ordinary matter, and between the primordial life, force, and the mind, exists a realm called ether, the pure essence that the gods breathed, which surrounds the central core of the life force and consists of all possibilities. Combined with chaos and with the assistance of the natural elements, real events and real thoughts begin to materialize out of projections. Thus, chaos is responsible for the origin and continued action of events. Eurynome dancing towards the south wind represents the movement of the breathing spirit, and therefore the possibility for creation begins in this first liminal period, instigated by the goddess, not through verbal speech, but through a mental projection of her intentions. Air refers to the whole body of the air in the atmosphere, the air in motion, as well as the air that spirals within us as we breathe, and serves as the means of creation and communication between all beings and elements of the animate world. It is consequently through activating the swirling patterns or vortices of air that provides within us the capacity of conscious thought and the ability to voice or command creation by means of thought, and subsequently it is the wind that begins to move things into place, as seen by Eurynome's creation myth. The goddess is therefore present as wind over the waters and is the innermost elemental relationship linking to the divine. It is that which flows most directly between goddess and human. In the next podcast, I will explore Artemis of Ploron and the prepubescent initiation known as the Actia, or playing the she-bear. Thank you for joining me on this journey. How might your life have been different if there was a religion for you? A religion that affirmed you as a woman, as equal to man, and made in the image of God. Heretical. Her eco-feminist theology.